Welcome to the Mind Cuts series. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving deep into something, well, pretty fundamental: communication. Especially, when the pressure's on.
All right. That high-stakes stuff.
Exactly. We've gone through a stack of your sources, interview excerpts, all about improving communication skills. And our mission, really, is to pull out the key takeaways.
Think of it as a shortcut. Not just the how to speak better, but the why behind it all. Why certain things work.
So you can feel more confident, more connected in your own interactions. We're going to explore some fascinating things.
Like why speaking can feel genuinely terrifying sometimes.
Yeah, even when it doesn't seem like a big deal. And why we sometimes choke under pressure, what's actually happening there.
Plus practical strategies. Things for managing anxiety, even making small talk feel, well, less like pulling teeth.
We'll look at the big picture, the evolutionary side of things.
And then drill right down into specific tips you can actually use right away.
So let's get started. First off, the sources really hammer home something we kind of know, don't we? Communication is just critical for everything. Business, life.
Absolutely essential. But they also raise this point that maybe it feels even harder now, more challenging.
And why is that?
Well, a big part of it seems to be just the sheer volume of information. We're constantly bombarded.
So breaking through that noise.
Exactly. You need clarity. You need concision. It's not just nice to have anymore. It's pretty much vital to be heard and understood.
And when people do struggle, what are the main things they report? The big problems?
The sources point to two main areas. First, anxiety, that overwhelming nervousness, especially in those high-stakes moments. And second, a lack of focus. Or maybe conciseness. Or, crucially, audience awareness. Basically not getting the message across clearly or making it relevant to the listener.
Let's dig into that anxiety piece first, because the explanation in the sources is, well, it's not what you might expect. It's not just about modern life, is it?
No, not at all. The research suggests this fear is deep. Really deep. Is found across cultures in every population they've studied.
Wow.
And fascinatingly, when does it usually spike? Right around the early teens. Globally.
So what's the surprising reason for this ancient fear? It comes back to status, but maybe not like we think of corporate ladders today.
That's right. Think way back. Our ancestors living in small groups, maybe 150 people or so.
Okay.
In that context, your status, your standing in the group, that was incredibly important. It meant access to resources, to safety, even mates. It could literally be life or death.
So standing up in front of everyone, making a mistake.
It wasn't just embarrassing. It could genuinely jeopardize your status, your position in the group.
And we still carry that deep-seated concern.
Precisely. That vulnerability, that worry about how the group sees us, it seems to be baked into our wiring. So even a work presentation can trigger that ancient fear of losing status. It's an evolutionary hangover, if you will.
Wow, so we're kind of pre-programmed for nerves. But hang on, if speaking up was so risky, why did good communication skills even evolve? How was that adaptive? It doesn't help hunt or gather directly.
This is where it gets really interesting. The perspective offered is that communication is how we actually use empathy.
How we operationalize it.
Exactly. And empathy, understanding, sharing others' feelings, that's absolutely critical for us. For collaboration, for connection.
Which are key to survival as a species, working together.
Massively important. Anything that helps the group collaborate better gives a huge advantage. So the ability to communicate effectively, to share complex ideas, emotions, it's seen as arising directly from that need for empathy and mutual support. The sources argue communication is fundamentally vital for survival.
Okay, so we're wrestling with this ancient anxiety, but the good news is the sources offer ways to manage it, right? To tame the beast, so to speak.
Yeah, it suggests a two-pronged approach. You manage the symptoms, the immediate feelings, and you also look at the sources.
Let's start with symptoms. What are some practical, in-the-moment things?
Breathing techniques are mentioned, but with a specific twist.
How so?
The emphasis is on the exhale, taking deep belly breaths, but making the exhale significantly longer, maybe twice as long as the inhale.
Why does that help?
It directly taps into your autonomic nervous system. It slows things down, lowers your heart rate. Just a few slow, long exhales can really shift you out of that fight or flight panic mode.
And what about getting present-oriented? What does that mean?
It's about deliberately pulling your focus away from worrying about the future. What if I mess up? What if they hate it? And ground yourself right here, right now.
How do you do that practically?
Simple things, actually. Chatting with someone casually before you have to speak, listening to some music, Anything that short-circuits that worry loop about what might happen.
And there was a slightly odd physical trick mentioned, too.
Yeah, if you tend to get hot or flush or
Right.
sweaty palms,
Yeah.
holding something cold, like a cold water bottle or even an ice pack briefly in your hands.
Why the hands?
Your palms are apparently key spots for regulating body temperature. Cooling them can actually help reduce those visible signs of nervousness, which sometimes just feed the anxiety further,
Makes sense. These are things you can literally do right when you feel it hitting.
Exactly. Immediate tools.
Okay, so that's managing the feeling of anxiety. But what about that specific issue of choking? You know it, but your mind just goes blank. Is that different from general nerves?
It's related, definitely, but there's a distinct mechanism often at play. Choking frequently happens not just from nerves, but from, believe it or not, over-rehearsing or trying to memorize everything word for word.
Wait, memorizing makes it worse.
Because it eats up your mental bandwidth. Your brain gets caught in this constant comparison loop. Am I saying it exactly like I memorized it? Was that word right?
Ah, so you're judging yourself in real time.
Precisely. And that judging and comparing consumes so much processing power, there's not enough left to just speak, to connect. The perfectionism paralyzes you.
So the antidote to choking and that perfectionism is focusing on connection instead.
Absolutely. That's the core principle. Your goal isn't a flawless performance. It's getting your idea across. It's providing value to the people listening, connecting with them.
And shifting focus to the audience helps take the pressure off yourself.
It really does. When you genuinely think, okay, what do they need to hear? How can I help them understand this? It takes the spotlight off your own little imperfections. It frees up that mental energy.
This ties into using structure, doesn't it? Not as a script, but as a guide.
Exactly. A clear structure, like the problem-solution-benefit model mentioned, gives you a roadmap. You know the main points, the key destinations.
But you're not locked into the exact route.
Right. And the sources stress that this structure, maybe counterintuitively, actually allows for more flexibility, more spontaneity.
How so?
Because you know where you're going overall. You have that framework. So you can listen, you can adapt your language, respond to a question, and still navigate back to your main path. You're not lost just because you deviated slightly.
Okay, so if rigid memorization leads to choking, can you actually prepare too much? Is over-preparation a real thing?
Oh, yes. Definitely possible. You can get into the wrong headspace, just like an athlete overtraining. Too rigid, too anxious about sticking to the plan.
So it's not about the amount of time spent preparing.
Not necessarily. It's more about the type of preparation. Repeating the exact same thing over and over, that can be counterproductive.
What's the better way then?
Practice variety. Practice different ways of explaining a point. Practice responding to different kinds of questions or scenarios. Think like athlete drills, practicing specific skills in varied situations so you're ready for anything.
Are there concrete examples in the sources?
Yeah, for something like a planned speech or a tribute. The advice is, use a structure, break it down, practice the sections individually. Maybe only run through the whole thing once or twice near the end.
So you know the parts without ossifying the whole delivery.
Exactly. And for something more interactive like preparing for Q&A, a great suggestion was using generative AI to simulate questions. Role-playing answers to unexpected queries is much better prep than just rehearsing answers you think might come up.
Okay, let's shift from prep to perception. There's an interesting point about being polished. Can someone be too polished? And does that affect trust?
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? We value competence, fluency. But if someone seems too slick, too rehearsed, it can actually create distance. The sources talk about the importance of presence.
Presence, meaning being genuinely there in the moment.
Yeah, that feeling that the speaker's actually with you, listening, responding, adapting, not just reciting.
And that's hard to fake if you're mentally running through lines.
Very hard. If your focus is purely internal, on recall, you can't fully connect with the audience, read their reactions, adjust on the fly. Good preparation should enable presence, not prevent it.
I love this concept mentioned, reverse charisma. Can you explain that?
It's brilliant. It comes from that Gladstone Disraeli anecdote. One politician left you thinking how clever he was. The other left you thinking how clever you were.
Ah, making the other person feel interesting.
Exactly. That reverse charisma stems from genuine curiosity, from patience, from being comfortable enough yourself that you create a safe space for others to share their thoughts. You make them feel heard and valued.
Which loops back perfectly to knowing your audience. It's not just about knowing facts about them.
No, it's about conveying what's genuinely relevant to them, making them feel seen and understood. As the Will Storr reference suggests, connection happens through identification. We connect when we see our own concerns or reality reflected.
And you can only do that if you've actually paid attention to who they are and what matters to them.
Right. Communication is always a two-way street. It needs that attention, that clear intention focused on the other person.
Okay, speaking of clarity, let's tackle rambling. Getting lost in your own explanation when you really need to be concise.
Precision is key here. There's a great phrase used in the source material. Tell the time. Don't build the clock.
Don't build the clock. I like that. What does it mean practically?
It means get to the point. Give the essential information needed now. Don't drag your listener through the entire history of your thought process, every twist and turn of discovery, unless that's specifically what they need. Focus on the so what for them.
And having a clear goal helps prevent that clock building.
Hugely important. The sources emphasize defining your goal, especially when stakes are high. A simple framework they suggest is no feel do.
No feel do.
Yeah. What specifically do you want the audience to know by the end? How do you want them to feel? And what, if anything, do you want them to do? Keeping that goal in mind acts like an internal editor, helps you stay focused.
What about speaking more spontaneously, like answering an unexpected question or giving quick feedback?
That definitely takes practice and having some tools ready. It's about quickly assessing the situation, understanding the need, and adapting.
And structure comes to the rescue again here, like a mental Swiss Army knife.
Spot on. A simple, versatile structure like what, so what, now what, is incredibly useful.
How would that work for, say, answering a question?
Okay, someone asks a question. What is the direct answer? So why is this answer important? Why should they care? What's the implication? Now, what's the next step? Or what action can be taken based on this?
Or for giving feedback.
Same idea.
Right.
What specific behavior did you observe? So what was the impact of that behavior? Now, what's the suggested change or next action?
Got it. Having that framework ready lets you respond coherently without freezing.
Exactly. You default to the structure, which frees up your mind to focus on the content and the person you're interacting with.
Let's talk about those moments of panic, feeling tongue-tied, the words just vanishing when you want to contribute.
Oh, that's incredibly common. And the sources have some really helpful advice here. First, and maybe most importantly, it's okay to pause.
Really? Just be silent.
Yes, you don't have to fill every microsecond. Saying something simple like, that's a really interesting point, let me think about that for a second, is perfectly fine. It shows you're considering it seriously.
And what about asking questions or paraphrasing?
Fantastic strategies. They're not just stalling tactics. They were genuine contributions. Asking a clarifying question, could you tell me more about X? Or paraphrasing. So if I'm hearing you right, you're saying, shows engagement and helps everyone.
And it buys you a moment to gather your own thoughts.
It does. Plus, it builds your confidence to jump in with your own point next. And on questions, the sources strongly emphasize, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
We hear that a lot, but do people believe it?
Well, the perspective offered is compelling. If you have a question, chances are high others do too. It's not on you to magically understand. It's on the speaker, to be clear. Asking is actually helpful. It flags where clarity is needed.
It helps the speaker, too, gives them a chance to clarify.
Absolutely. Asking good questions and paraphrasing accurately are highlighted as core skills of a great conversationalist. They show you're listening, they deepen understanding.
Speaking of conversations, the source material mentioned research on supporting versus shifting turns. What's that about?
Really interesting stuff. A shifting turn basically redirects the conversation back to you or onto a new topic.
Right.
Oh, that reminds me of when a supporting turn builds directly on what the other person said. It keeps the focus on their point or asks for more detail. Wow, that sounds challenging. What happened next?
And the balance between these matters.
Critically, it seems. Conversations dominated by shifting turns can feel disconnected, like people are just waiting to talk. The research suggests aiming for more supporting turns maybe 2/3 or even 3/4 of the time.
Why?
It leads to deeper connection, more meaningful exchanges. It signals genuine interest and active listening.
Okay, let's tackle filler words. The ums, the ubs, the likes. They're normal, but...
But too many can be really distracting, right? Especially if they cluster between thoughts. They can undermine perceived competence.
What's the #1 technique mentioned for reducing them?
Breath control. It sounds simple, but it's apparently very effective.
How does breath control stop an
Think about it. Speaking happens on the exhale. If you consciously use your breath fully for a phrase or sentence, you physically have to pause to inhale before the next one.
Ah, so the inhale creates a natural pause where the filler might otherwise go.
Exactly. You remove the fuel, the airflow, needed for that filler sound. A practice technique suggested is reciting lists, your grocery list, your calendar, and focusing on landing the phrase, finishing the thought and the breath together.
Builds that habit of pausing naturally. What about the word like? It gets a lot of attention.
It does. And it's complex because it serves so many grammatical functions. The sources note it's used differently and perceived differently across generations.
Some people find it really irritating.
Yes, particularly older generations might perceive frequent use as a discourse marker negatively. But linguistically, it can do things like it was like 5 miles, or signal hesitation, or hedge a statement.
Is it just language changing?
Seems likely. It's more prevalent in spoken language, maybe tied to that real-time processing. The sources even briefly touch on broader language evolution, like emojis becoming legally relevant. Shows how dynamic communication is.
Let's talk confidence. The sources say it's crucial.
Absolutely essential. We're naturally drawn to confidence. But, and this is big, but it's genuine confidence, not arrogance. Confidence in yourself, yes, but also confidence in your message and its value.
What's the interplay between feeling confident and just acting confident?
There's definitely a feedback loop. Acting the part can help build the feeling that fake it till you make it idea isn't entirely wrong, but authenticity is key. People are usually pretty good at sniffing out fakeness.
So projecting false confidence can backfire.
Badly. It comes back to connection again. Being authentic, even if that means acknowledging a shared reality, like, wow, it's warm in here, can build more trust than a flawless but artificial performance.
And what about that advice? Do not apologize for being nervous beforehand.
Yes. Very strong advice. Saying, sorry, I'm really nervous, tends to just make the audience hyper-aware, looking for signs of nerves. It primes them negatively and often makes you feel worse.
So unless it's a genuine external issue like a microphone problem.
Right. Address technical glitches, sure, but don't highlight your own internal state of anxiety.
Okay, nearly there. Some quick practical wins. Voice warm-ups. Necessary.
Definitely recommended. Just like warming up muscles for exercise, nothing strenuous needed.
What's the best way?
Best way, just talk to people beforehand. Have a normal conversation. If you're alone, doing a few tongue twisters can work too. Just gets the vocal cords moving.
And small talk, making it less painful.
The key shift. Focus on being interested, not on trying to be interesting. Ask genuine questions. Give it a purpose, even if it's just learn one new thing about this person.
And how to escape gracefully.
The waving the white flag technique.
Yeah.
Signal the end is near. Well, it's been great chatting, but I should probably go grab that drink.
Yeah.
But one last brief interaction before you actually part ways softens the exit.
Lastly, the sources gave a template for a really effective apology. What are the components?
3 key parts. 1, acknowledge specifically what you did wrong. Be clear.
Okay.
2, express understanding or appreciation for how the other person was impacted or felt. Crucially, apologize for your action, not for their feelings.
So I'm sorry I interrupted, not I'm sorry you felt interrupted.
Exactly that. Own the action. And 3, make amends. State clearly and specifically what you will do differently going forward.
Like the example given.
Yeah, and instead of a vague, I'll try not to interrupt, say something concrete like, next time I'll make sure to let you finish your thought and I'll paraphrase to check my understanding before I respond. Shows real commitment.
Wow. So, wrapping this all up, we've gone from ancient survival instincts driving speaking anxiety,
all the way to modern techniques for concision, connection, handling questions, even ending small talk.
We've seen how managing breath can reduce ums, how structure can actually free you up, how focusing on the audience beats perfectionism every time.
And that improving communication isn't some superficial skill. It's deeply human. It's about presence, empathy, clear intention. It's about connecting.
This deep dive really shows that small shifts in preparation, listening, structure, even just breathing can genuinely make a massive difference in how we connect and how we feel about our own voice.
So, the final thought for you, listening. Where in your own communication, your own interactions, could applying just one of these ideas make a real difference? Maybe it's focusing on supporting turns, trying that what, so what, now what structure, or simply remembering to breathe before you speak. Just one thing. What could that unlock for you? Something to think about.